Frank Ocean is a name that has left a lasting impact on the music industry, not only because of his unique style talking about love, loss, or identity, but also because of his bold strategy trying to gain control over his own art. Now, in 2016, Frank Ocean had a deal with Def Jam, one of the biggest labels in the world. For this contract to be finished, he needed to develop a last album with them. So this story is more about how Frank Ocean freed himself from this contract that he was in and what this meant for him. Now, this isn't about independency. It's more about how important it is for an artist to to have control over their own financial and creative decisions. So I hope that you don't see Frank Ocean as someone that just broke the rules more than someone that tried to leave a path for others to follow. So, like I said before, in 2016, he had one more project to develop with Def Jam. So this project was Endless. It was a visual album. It wasn't obviously a conventional album because it was him basically constructing a staircase in black and white. And at first glance, this may seem as a weird choice for the aesthetic of the project, and yes, it is. I mean, he didn't even let consumers try to choose the song. You basically have to watch all the video, which is along 45 minutes. So obviously, this had a different meaning. Now, legally, this freed him from his contract with Def Jam, but this had a metaphor behind all this project. The metaphor that Frank Ocean is trying to tell us is basically Frank Ocean talking about the creative process that artists have, which is this endless cycle of building and rebuilding. Now, Endless wasn't a successful album as the label would want to because it basically was this conceptual album. So fans didn't like it a lot, critics didn't like it a lot, and this left us with an unfinished project, which most of the people think that it was made on purpose because of his problems with Def Jam before. Now, the interesting thing about this album is what it meant. Basically, this was the most creative and strategic way that Frank found to get out of his contract. Now, one day after this album dropped, he basically dropped one of his most known products or one of his most known albums, which is Blonde. Now, Blonde was completely the opposite. Blonde had all the attraction from the public, had all the attraction from the critics. Everyone loved it. Everything that Endless was lacking of, Blonde have it. So actually, it's kind of funny because Blonde was the fifth place on the Apple Music 100 Best Albums in the whole history, which indicates how successful this project was. Even trying to even being held grabbing a prize from the company that was against him in 2016. This was, I think, last year. So I think that this shows how important it is for artists these days to develop their own creativity. Now, some people may say, okay, Frank Ocean is ungrateful because he basically attacked the label that gave him a chance in the first place, and that is technically true, but it's also incorrect. Mainly because the thing that happened behind Endless is more complex. For example, in 2008, he was signed by Def Jam, and in this project, he basically couldn't release an album until 2012. So he was left without doing anything of his own art publicly because he couldn't. And I think this is where he found out that the industry is broken, that the industry or the labels, the companies basically now choose what the artist want or what the artist can do. So this limitates all this art that we like a lot and takes the purity out of it. So basically, this is what he meant about this. He tried to make art or music more pure with the creatives or the artists behind it more more freely active. And as we can see, I think that, like I said before, this shows the purity that an artist should have and the path that they should choose instead of going into a commercial basis. Maybe, yes, some artists like that, but in general, now it's with contracts, with all the limitations that the industry has. That, oh, I want this artist to drop this day. I want this artist to drop this day. Well, basically, it has its own limitations, or at least in sound. And I think that is basically what Frank Ocean was against in the first place. And well, I want to finish this with this quote, which is in an industry, sorry, in an industry building contracts and control, Frank Ocean proved that freedom is priceless. Sometimes the valuable art is the one created into the path to independence. And I think, in conclusion, that is the best way of summing everything. That's it.
Thank you very much.